Today's lesson is about Jacob, from deceiver to man of honor.
If you like the study, subscribe to the channel to get more content like this and turn on the bell to receive notifications. Give a thumbs up and comment down below what you thought of the study, share your opinion, and happy studying.
Imagine working 7 grueling years, laboring under the scorching sun of the ancient Middle East.
Right, which is no small thing.
Exactly. You are doing this all for the love of your life, paying the ultimate bride price with your own sweat and exhaustion.
It is a massive commitment.
It really is. Then, the wedding night finally arrives, the celebrations end, the darkness falls, and you finally embrace your bride.
You think you have finally made it.
But then the morning sun rises. You look over and you realize you have been completely, utterly tricked. You marry the wrong sister.
Which is just a stunning turn of events.
It really is. You, the ultimate deceiver, have just been completely outplayed. Welcome to an in-depth exploration of the biblical patriarch Jacob.
I am really looking forward to this one.
Me too. Our mission for this deep dive is to trace Jacob's trajectory from a deceiver to a man of honor, examining the theological, cultural, and historical layers of his transformation.
And there are so many layers to uncover here.
Absolutely. We will begin with the introductory text for Lesson 11. The title of Lesson 11 is Jacob, from deceiver to man of honor.
A very fitting title.
Yes. The golden text is, "And he said, Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and hast prevailed." Genesis chapter 32, verse 28.
Such a powerful verse.
It is. The practical truth is, only God can transform human character and life.
Amen to that.
And the biblical reading in class is Genesis chapter 32, verses 22 through 31. I'm going to read this directly from the King James Version. "And he rose up that night, and took his 2 wives, and his 2 women servants, and his 11 sons, and passed over the ford Jabbok. And he took them, and sent them over the brook, and sent over that he had. And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day.
Right.
And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint, as he wrestled with him. And he said, Let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. And he said unto him, What is thy name? And he said, Jacob.
Which means deceiver.
Exactly. And he said, Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and hast prevailed.
Beautiful.
And Jacob asked him, and said, Tell me, I pray thee, thy name. And he said, Wherefore is it that thou dost ask after my name? And he blessed him there.
You got his blessing.
He did. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel. For I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. And as he passed over Peniel, the sun rose upon him, and he halted upon his thigh.
What an incredible text. To properly navigate this profound transformation, we will structure our lessons strictly following the guidelines of our lesson plan.
Sounds good. Let us get into it.
The introduction to our theme centers entirely around the concept of human transformation. True conversion to Jesus Christ implies becoming a new creature generated by the Holy Spirit.
Right, precisely as stated in John chapter 3, verse 3.
Exactly. Jacob's life serves as the ultimate archetype of this spiritual process. His journey begins with a theophanic encounter at Bethel and culminates at Peniel, a name meaning the face of God.
It is a long journey between those 2 places.
It really is. We have 3 specific objectives for this deep dive. Objective 1 is to emphasize the structural and relational aspects of Jacob's family.
Okay, got it.
Objective 2 is to explain the divine nature behind Jacob's desire to return to his homeland.
Which is a huge turning point.
Yes. And objective 3 is to demonstrate the profound spiritual relevance of his crossing at the ford of Jabbok.
To really understand the motivation and context of this biblical history, we have to look at Jacob's stigma. From the very moment of his birth, grasping his brother Esau's heel, Jacob carried a metaphorical scar.
He was marked from day 1.
Right. His name literally translates to supplanter, or one who takes by the heel. This early identity fostered highly opportunistic and deceptive behavior.
And that was only amplified by his environment.
Right. Exactly. A deeply dysfunctional family dynamic where parents openly played favorites. Isaac loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob.
Which is just a recipe for disaster.
Total disaster. Yet, despite being forced into exile, enduring arduous labor and suffering severe deception himself, a personal encounter with God sparked a total metamorphosis.
It changed everything for him.
It did. So I pose a direct question to you, the listener, who has already experienced the transforming power of Jesus.
When we analyze that question, we really must assert a fundamental theological reality. Only Jesus Christ holds the absolute prerogative to alter human essence.
That is a critical distinction.
It is. We often think of, self-improvement or behavior modification, but those are superficial.
Right. They do not change who you are at your core.
Exactly. There is no individual on earth whose character is too complex, too entrenched, or too vile to escape the regenerative power of the Son of God.
That is such an encouraging thought.
The transformation we see in Jacob proves that the Creator alone can reach into the deepest recesses of human personality and emotion and forge something entirely new.
Because Jacob was a master manipulator, right?
Yeah.
A man who relied entirely on his own cunning.
Oh, absolutely. Breaking that requires more than just a life lesson. It requires a divine intervention.
That sets the stage beautifully for us. Let us move right into the core material.
Lead the way.
I will now explicitly announce Topic 1, Jacob's family, from page 77.
Perfect.
So the biblical history brings us to a special meeting. After fleeing his brother Esau's wrath, Jacob arrives in the east and meets Rachel, the daughter of his uncle Laban.
And she's out working when he finds her.
Yes, he finds her attempting to water her father's sheep, as she was a shepherdess, which we read in Genesis chapter 29, verse 10. He arrives completely destitute.
He literally has nothing.
Right. He has the blessing of Abraham, but he does not have a single coin in his pocket for a traditional bride price. So he commits to 7 grueling years of labor just to marry her.
But then comes the twist.
The ultimate twist. On his wedding night, the master deceiver falls victim to a devastating deception. He wakes up next to Leah, the older sister.
This is a profound irony within the biblical history. Here, we witness the law of sowing in full effect.
He reaps exactly what he sowed.
Precisely. He sowed lies and deceit. God certainly forgives, but he frequently employs pedagogical discipline to shape character.
Which is not always pleasant to go through.
Not at all. Let us look at a vital linguistic insight from the Hebrew text here. The text emphasizes the repetition of the word abodah, meaning service or hard labor.
Okay, so there is a deliberate word choice.
Yes. Jacob, the very man who received the grand Abrahamic promise that peoples would bow down to him, effectively becomes an ebed, a servant to an idolatrous relative for 14 years.
Wow, an ebed. That is quite the fall.
It is. He had zero moral immunity before the impartial judge of all the earth. The consequences of his earlier actions met him right in the darkness of that wedding night.
Wait, I need to push back here for a second, just to clarify things for the listener.
Sure, go ahead.
If Jacob is God's chosen instrument to carry the Abrahamic blessing, why does God allow Laban to exploit him so thoroughly? I mean, Jacob is literally the heir to the covenant.
It does seem contradictory on the surface.
Doesn't it seem strange that God permits Laban to treat the heir of the promise as an indentured servant?
Well, this brings us to a crucial bibliological aid found on page 78 regarding the specific profile of Laban.
Okay, what does the profile say?
Laban is characterized throughout the text by severe egocentrism, falsity, and cheating. He exploited his nephew for 2 whole decades.
20 years of just constant exploitation.
Yes. Laban recognized very clearly that Jacob was the key to his own material prosperity, and he used every trick available to keep Jacob bound to his estate.
So why does God allow this?
That is an essential question to examine. God allows this because Jacob's character was fundamentally incompatible with his calling.
Ah, so the character had to match the calling.
Exactly. Jacob was a man who believed he could outsmart the universe. He thought he could secure the promises of God through his own manipulation.
Which is completely contrary to faith.
Right. By placing Jacob under the authority of Laban, a man who is essentially a more experienced, more ruthless version of Jacob himself, God created the perfect crucible for character transformation.
I love that analogy. A crucible.
Think of it as a mirror. Jacob had to look at Laban for 20 years and see the ugliness of his own deceitful nature reflected back at him.
That must have been incredibly humbling.
Laban was not committing casual errors, he was calculating. He changed Jacob's wages 10 times.
10 times.
Yeah.
Just constantly moving the goalpost.
Exactly. This prolonged exploitation was the exact pedagogical tool required to break Jacob's reliance on his own astuteness.
That makes perfect sense. It is almost like a modern corporate scenario,
How do you mean?
where a young, ruthless executive who has stepped on everyone to get ahead is suddenly placed under a CEO who does the exact same thing to him.
Oh, stealing his credit and his bonuses.
Yes, he finally feels the sting of his own methods. And this leads to the complicated family dynamic of many children and the consequences of polygamy.
Which is a major issue in this biblical history.
While polygamy was culturally common in the ancient Middle East, it directly contradicted God's original monogamic purpose established in Eden.
Precisely. We must understand the environment Jacob inadvertently created. Because of Laban's trickery, Jacob is suddenly thrust into a polygamous marriage with two sisters who are now rivals.
It is a terrible situation for everyone involved.
This household becomes a pressure cooker of envy.
This requires a clear theological distinction for the listener. We must always clarify the difference between descriptive texts, which simply report what happened, and prescriptive commands, which dictate what God orders.
That is a very important point to make.
Right. The biblical history of Jacob's family is highly realistic and purely descriptive. It does not hide the catastrophic fruits of this polygamous arrangement.
Not at all. It shows all the warts.
We see bitter jealousy, blatant favoritism, emotional manipulation using children as bargaining chips, and even the introduction of idolatry into the household.
It is incredibly dysfunctional.
The text shows the painful reality of human choices. It never endorses Jacob's family structure. Rather, it documents the misery it caused.
Yet, within that painful reality, the sovereignty of God operates magnificently.
How so?
This brings us to what we can call the hidden gold of the text, a stunning linguistic detail. Leah was the unloved wife.
The text explicitly says she was despised or hated compared to Rachel.
Yes, but God opens her womb, and when she gives birth to her fourth son, she names him Yehudah, or Judah.
Okay, Judah, why is that name so special?
This name is extraordinary. It contains the ineffable tetragrammaton, the sacred name of God, YHVH, integrated with the Hebrew letter Dalet.
Wait, really? YHVH is right in the name Judah?
It is. This graphically and literally inserts the signature of the covenant God directly into the lineage.
Let us break that down for the listener because that is mind-blowing. Why is that specific detail so monumental?
Because Judah is the tribe from which King David and ultimately Jesus Christ, the Messiah, would descend.
Wow, so God bypassed the favored wife, Rachel, entirely for this.
He did. He chose the offspring of the despised, rejected wife to carry the most glorious promise in human history.
That is just beautiful.
It gets better. The letter Dalet in ancient Hebrew pictographs represents a door.
A door. Okay.
By inserting Dalet into the divine name to form Judah, it symbolically suggests that through Judah, God was opening a door for the salvation of humanity.
That gives me chills. That is amazing.
It proves his sovereign grace over human dysfunction. He does not need a perfect family to execute a perfect plan.
That is an incredible detail. God's signature written into the name of the rejected wife's son, opening the door to redemption.
It is one of my favorite details in the entire biblical history.
I can see why. Well, now we proceed to our next section. I will now explicitly announce Topic 2, Jacob desires to return to his land from page 79.
Right, let us dive into that.
After years of labor, and right after the birth of Joseph, Jacob finally asks Laban to release him and his family, as seen in Genesis chapter 30, verses 25 through 27.
He is finally ready to go.
He says, "Send me away, that I may go unto my own place and to my country."
We must really examine the Hebrew term mechem, which is translated as place.
Mechem. What is the significance there?
When Jacob expresses his longing for home, he uses this specific word. It transcends mere geography. For a man in the ancient Middle East, land was intimately tied to identity and deity.
So it wasn't just about moving to a different town.
Not at all. For Jacob, it carries the immense weight of a divinely ordained destiny. It represents the theological place of rest and communion with the God of his fathers.
So his desire to leave Haran shows he is beginning to look past immediate survival.
Exactly. He is starting to recognize his role in the broader history of redemption. Haran was a place of exile. Canaan was the place of the promise.
But Laban is making entirely too much profit from Jacob's presence. He admits, "I have learned by experience that the Lord hath blessed me for thy sake."
Laban knows a good thing when he has it.
Oh, he absolutely does. He refuses to let Jacob go easily. They eventually strike a peculiar agreement regarding the wages.
The spotted and speckled sheep, right?
Yes. Jacob says he will take all the speckled and spotted livestock, leaving the solid-colored ones for Laban.
And Laban thinks this is a great deal.
Laban agrees, thinking he has outsmarted Jacob again, And he immediately removes all the currently spotted animals, so Jacob has nothing to start with.
Classic Laban.
But Jacob separates the flocks, uses peeled rods of green poplar, hazel, and chestnut, and suddenly his wealth explodes.
This specific event requires careful analysis because it is often deeply misunderstood by modern readers.
What do people usually get wrong about it?
Well, it is critical to clarify that Jacob's resulting massive prosperity was not the product of human astuteness or some sympathetic magic involving peeled rods.
Right, it wasn't a magic trick.
In the ancient world, there was a widespread belief in maternal impression.
What is a maternal impression?
It is the idea that whatever a mother looked at during conception would alter the physical appearance of the offspring. Jacob was acting on the scientific understanding of his day.
Okay, so he thought the visual of the striped rods would make striped sheep.
Exactly. However, the biblical history later reveals in a dream that God was the one sovereignly controlling the genetics of the flock.
Let us dig into the how behind this, because it is fascinating. God often uses natural mechanisms to achieve supernatural results.
He certainly does.
So what is the actual science behind those specific peeled rods? I mean, why poplar, hazel, and chestnut?
This is where rigorous analysis reveals an intriguing biochemical mystery. The specific trees mentioned, plane, poplar, and almond, are incredibly rich in certain nutritional compounds and tannins.
Wait, really? So they weren't just random sticks?
Not at all. When Jacob peeled the bark and placed these branches in the water troughs where the flocks drank and mated, he was inadvertently infusing the water with high levels of specific nutrients.
Like making a giant cup of nutrient tea for the sheep.
Exactly. Modern veterinary science shows that the nutritional plane of a female sheep or goat right around the time of conception directly affects ovulation rates and embryo survival.
Oh, wow. So he was boosting their fertility.
Yes. By improving the nutrition of the stronger animals that drank from those troughs, he was increasing their fertility and reproductive success.
So it was not magic at all. He was essentially creating an ancient nutritional supplement in the water supply.
That is a great way to put it. But the specific coloring, the spots and speckles, that was entirely God overwriting the genetic probabilities to ensure Jacob was compensated for his decades of unpaid labor.
God restituted the years of severe exploitation Jacob suffered.
Exactly. God used a method Jacob understood, supplemented by actual biological mechanisms, governed entirely by divine justice.
That is just incredible to see science and theology overlap like that.
Yeah.
And as Jacob's wealth grows exponentially, so does resentment.
Naturally, people get jealous.
Envy infects Laban's sons, as recorded in Genesis chapter 31, verse 1. They accuse Jacob of stealing their father's glory.
Which is ironic since Laban stole from Jacob for 20 years.
Right. Laban's countenance changes drastically. The environment becomes hostile and physically dangerous. At this precise moment, God intervenes and explicitly commands Jacob to return to his kindred.
It was time to get out of there.
The Lord says, "Return unto the land of thy fathers and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee."
And God's timing is always perfect.
So Jacob flees secretly while Laban is away shearing sheep. When Laban discovers this 3 days later, he is furious.
He gathers his men and goes after him.
He pursues Jacob for 7 days, finally catching up at Mount Gilead. This brings us to another fascinating bibliological aid from page 81 regarding the pursuit and the teraphim, or household idols.
Right, the idols Rachel had stolen before they left.
Why did she steal them in the first place, and why does the text focus on them so much?
In ancient Mesopotamian culture, possessing the family teraphim often legally guaranteed the right of inheritance.
Oh, so it was like taking the deed to the house.
Precisely. Rachel, feeling cheated out of her father's wealth, likely took them to secure her family's financial future.
But there is more to it than just the legal aspect, right?
Yes, the biblical history here employs a brilliant form of satire to expose the utter foolishness of idolatry.
I love how the Bible uses satire. Paint the picture for us.
Think about the scene. Laban is frantically searching the tents for his gods. When he reaches Rachel's tent, she is sitting on a camel's saddle, claiming she cannot rise because she is unwell.
And she has the idols hidden right underneath her.
Exactly.
The visual is incredibly striking. The gods of Laban are so powerless that they could be stolen, packed away in luggage, and ultimately hidden under a woman sitting on them.
It is pretty pathetic when you think about it.
This biblical history choice, brilliantly elevates the absolute superiority of the invisible God of Isaac. Laban's gods are trapped under a saddle. Jacob's God commands the heavens.
Furthermore, we must look at the divine warning Laban receives in a dream the night before he catches Jacob. God tells him to speak neither good nor bad to Jacob.
That is a very specific phrase, neither good nor bad.
Yes. In the Hebrew idiom, maitav adra, this was not just advice. It was an absolute legal prohibition against interfering in the divine plan.
So his hands were completely tied.
It stripped Laban of any authority to bargain, threaten, curse, or harm Jacob. Laban even admits he has the power to do hurt, but the God of Jacob's father forbade it.
God neutralized Laban completely. He built an invisible fortress around Jacob.
He protected his chosen vessel.
But escaping Laban is only half the battle. Now, the final geographic and psychological hurdle approaches. I will now explicitly announce Topic 3 Jacob at the ford of Jabbok from page 80.
This is where everything comes to a head.
As Jacob nears his homeland, a new terror grips him. He sends messengers ahead to Esau, hoping to find favor.
He is still terrified of his brother.
And for good reason. The messengers return with chilling news. Esau's coming to meet him, accompanied by 400 men.
400 men is not a welcoming party, it is a militia.
It is an army. This anguish prompts Jacob to pray, and his prayer in Genesis chapter 32 serves as a perfect homiletic model.
It is a profoundly structured prayer. Notice the precise structure here. First, he invokes the covenant God, identifying him as the God of Abraham and Isaac.
Right, grounding himself in the covenant.
Second, he recalls the specific divine command to return, reminding God that he is only in this dangerous situation because he obeyed.
He is saying, Lord, I am just doing what you told me to do.
Exactly. Third, he openly confesses his complete unworthiness, stating he is not worthy of the least of all the mercies.
Which is a huge shift in character for Jacob.
And finally, he quotes God's specific promises back to him, reminding the Lord of the promise to multiply his seed.
Following this prayer, Jacob acts as the priest of his home. He divides his camp to protect his family, sending gifts ahead in waves to pacify Esau.
He is still using his strategic mind.
He utilizes all his human wisdom and strategy, but he knows his ultimate defense rests with God. He sends his family and his possessions across the river, and then the text says, and Jacob was left alone.
That is such a haunting phrase.
Yeah.
Left alone.
He strips away everything he owns, everyone he loves, and he is left in the dark to face the darkest night of his life.
We must understand the cultural context of the ancient Middle East regarding this specific setting.
Why is the river crossing so important?
Crossing a river ford at night represented a highly dangerous geographical and spiritual boundary. In ancient literature, river crossings were often associated with fears of ambushes, territorial guardians, or hostile spiritual forces.
So it was naturally a place of immense anxiety.
Very much so. However, the biblical history subverts this cultural expectation entirely by revealing that Jacob's opponent is not a demon or an angry river spirit.
It is God himself.
Yes, it is the God of the covenant himself, demanding total submission before Jacob can re-enter the promised land.
This is a staggering concept. God fights Jacob to save Jacob from himself.
And the Hebrew text gives us a fascinating linguistic wordplay here that ties the whole event together.
I love the linguistic wordplays. What is it?
There is an intentional phonetic pun between the name of the river Jabbok, pronounced Jabbok, the name Jacob, pronounced Jacob, and the Hebrew word for the wrestling itself, Vayavek.
So the river, the man, and the action all sound the same.
Exactly. It intertwines the location, the man, and the struggle into one inseparable event. The environment and the action reflect the man's soul.
That is just brilliant literature right there.
During this relentless struggle, which lasts until the breaking of the day, the angel touches the joint of Jacob's thigh, the chafioratio.
The sciatic muscle.
Yes. This strikes the sciatic muscle. For a wrestler, or indeed anyone engaging in physical combat, this muscle is the absolute core of balance, leverage, and physical strength.
It connects the lower body to the upper body.
Right.
Let us pause here for a second, because understanding the anatomy explains the theology. If your sciatic nerve or the surrounding muscle structure is compromised, your leg collapses under your own weight.
You cannot stand.
You cannot generate power. You cannot stand your ground. Why did God target this specific physical point?
Because it symbolized Jacob's foundational strength.
Oh, I see.
His entire life was built on his ability to maneuver, to pivot, to stand firm on his own 2 feet through manipulation and cleverness. By dislocating his hip, God physically broke Jacob's self-reliance.
He took away his ability to run away, too.
Exactly. It is vital to emphasize that Jacob did not win this fight through human superiority or willpower. He prevailed precisely because he was physically incapacitated.
So his victory was found in his defeat.
Stripped of his legendary strength, unable to wrestle any longer, he could only cling to his opponent.
Wow.
He transitioned from fighting against God to clinging to God, weeping and begging for grace. He capitulated entirely.
That is the turning point of his entire existence. He refuses to let go. He says, I will not let thee go except thou bless me.
He is a desperate man.
He is no longer trying to seal a blessing. He is desperately pleading for one as a broken man. And in that moment of absolute weakness and total dependence, his transformation is sealed.
And then comes the question. The angel asks his name.
Yes. For the first time, he does not lie. He does not say, I am Esau, as he did to his father. He confesses his true nature, Jacob, the deceiver.
He finally owns his identity.
And God responds by changing his identity. His name is changed from Jacob to Israel. He calls the place Peniel, saying, I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved.
A completely new man walks away from that river.
I want to ask you, the listener, a direct question to ponder right now. What represents the muscle of self-sufficiency in your own spiritual life?
That is a very penetrating question.
What is that foundational strength you rely on instead of God, that God needs to touch and break so that you can truly lean on him?
That breaking is essential for true spiritual formation. It is painful, but necessary.
It really is.
This moves us beautifully into our enrichment section, where we draw upon deep, rigorous insights from the extra provided text to broaden our understanding of these events.
Yes. Let us delve deeper into the irony of the darkness and the law of sowing we mentioned earlier.
The historical and exegetical analysis reveals a meticulously woven pattern of divine retribution and discipline.
Right, because the symmetry of God's discipline here is mathematically precise. It is not just random punishment. It is highly tailored to fit the crime.
Exactly. Jacob originally used the cover of physical darkness and his father Isaac's blindness to steal a blessing.
He used the inability of others to see to execute his fraud.
Yes. And years later, Laban uses the literal darkness of the wedding night and the heavy bridal veil to switch Leah for Rachel. The deceiver in the dark is deceived in the dark.
You cannot escape the harvest of your own actions.
Furthermore, Laban justifies his deceit the next morning by invoking the right of the firstborn.
Oh, that is just devastating.
He states it is not their custom to give the younger before the firstborn. This was the exact legal and cultural custom Jacob had violated with Esau.
So Laban uses the very law Jacob broke to punish Jacob.
It shows that God's justice is inescapable, even for the elect. God will not let his children get away with sin.
We also see through this entire scope that Jacob's journey represents progressive sanctification. It is a crucial theological point for us to grasp.
Transformation is a process.
Exactly. He does not become perfect overnight after his first encounter at Bethel. It takes 20 years of hardship.
He goes from Jacob, the man who constantly tries to secure blessings through clever workarounds, manipulation, and human astuteness, to Israel, a man entirely surrendered to divine sovereignty.
Peniel stands forever as the altar of agonizing intercession, the place where the old nature is finally dismantled.
We must also recognize the cultural context of the ancient Middle East regarding name changes. It was a very significant act.
What did name change signify back then?
When a monarch conquered a territory or elevated a servant, they frequently changed their name to signify a new destiny and ownership.
So God was doing more than just giving him a nickname.
Oh, much more. By changing Jacob's name to Israel, God was claiming absolute ownership over his life and declaring his new destiny.
He was no longer defined by his past deceit, but by his future role in God's redemptive history.
That is astounding when you really think about the implications.
The deeper we dig into the history, the cultural laws, and the linguistic nuances, the more the text reveals its absolute brilliance.
There's so much depth to uncover.
We have seen how God uses dysfunctional families, long periods of exile, the harsh realities of ancient labor contracts, and even a physical wrestling match in the dirt to forge a patriarch.
God will use whatever means necessary.
We have now reached the point for our review and quiz. This is a vital step in our deep dive.
I am ready.
We will read the questions and answers integrally and literally as provided in the source text to solidify the knowledge from this study.
Question 1. What was the location of the first meeting between Jacob and Rachel?
Jacob met Rachel, daughter of Laban, his uncle, when she was trying to give water to her father's flocks, as she was a shepherdess. Gen 29.gism.
Question 2. What was the name of Laban's daughter that he used to deceive Jacob on the wedding day?
Leah.
Question 3. What did the struggle between Jacob and the angel result in?
This struggle resulted in a transformation of character and in God's blessing upon Jacob's life.
Question 4. Who alone can transform the human being?
Transforming the human being, their character, their personality, and their emotions, is something that only the Creator can do.
Question 5. Where did God order Jacob to return? Did he comply immediately?
God had ordered Jacob to return to his father Isaac's house. We do not know why, but he did not comply with this divine determination and settled in Shechem. Cf. Gen 31.13, 35.1. He carried that mark forever.
Every step he took for the rest of his life was a physical reminder of his encounter with God. In a modern culture totally obsessed with projecting strength, independence, and flawless perfection, we spend so much energy trying to hide our weaknesses.
We want everyone to think we have it all together.
But how might carrying a visible spiritual limp, a total humble dependence on God's grace rather than our own astuteness, actually be the truest mark of a prince or princess in the kingdom?
It is a beautiful paradox.
It is a weakness that proves we have encountered the living God. It shows we no longer rely on our own speed or strength, but on the God who walks with us. If you enjoyed our studies, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell to receive more content like this, leave a thumbs up and comment below the word Bible study so we know you made it to the end of this class.
Until the next Bible study.
Leave your comment down below with the word Bible study so we know you made it to the end of the study.
If you enjoyed the study, give it a thumbs up and turn on notifications to receive more content like this.
Share this video with more people. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.